suspect, all right? That is one of our new words, okay? Thinking about suspects and their motives. So this also has to deal with your writing lesson today. So really pay attention, okay? So when we're reading mysteries, right, we've been making ton of predictions, predicting what's going to happen, who did what we think is going to be the outcome, what we think is going to happen to solve the mystery. So far, you have learned that it helps to draw on what you know about the characters to predict, right? What you know about the characters' traits, their motivations to do something, so why they're doing something, their past histories. So knowing those things help you figure out what might happen, right? So today I want to teach you that when you're reading a mystery, the only way readers can predict, remember, predict means what do I think is going to happen next? The only way they can think forward so as to figure out who did the crime, we also have to think backwards, okay? Remember, we've constantly been going back to that letter that Wallace Wallace wrote Dink, right? When he said, the only thing that's going to stop me is being kidnapped. So mystery readers, we've been pausing and thinking back, right, as we've been reading this, to think about the characters and what we know about each character. Might he be a suspect? Might she be a suspect? So to figure out this mystery, to predict what lies ahead in the story, we need to pause and think back on what we know about what each character is asking, about what we're asking about each character. So we're asking, might he be a suspect? Might she be a suspect? So remember, a suspect is who we think might have committed the crime. So far we have two major suspects in Wallace's kidnapping. Who remembers who our first suspect is? He is the owner of the bookstore. Who remembers what his name is? Does anyone remember? Think for a minute. Piper.
Princeton?
Say it again.
Princeton?
Close. You're very, very close. His name is Paskey. Mr. Paskey. We said that we think Mr. Paskey is a suspect because he's constantly acting super nervous, right? He's just a weird, nervous guy. And we're like, that's a little suspicious, right? Because remember, earlier we talked about people are usually guilty when they act nervous. Mohammed, what's up, bud?
I think I know why.
Why?
I think I know why.
Okay, let's hear it.
Because everyone there meet him except him.
Okay, yeah, that could be why too. That could definitely be why. So let's keep going, okay? So our first suspect was Mr. Paskey, and our second one, remember the cab driver, Maureen Higgins. This lady, can you see her? Maureen Higgins. So remember, before we can figure out if one of those suspects actually did the crime, we need to think back on that person and ask ourselves, what do we know about these people? And here's another tip. Readers specifically need to think about the motives, and not just the motives, but the opportunities that the suspect had or didn't have. So motives is reason for doing something. So maybe they were thinking, remember they were talking about, well, why would Mr. Paskey kidnap him? Why would this person kidnap him? That's what the motive is. Why would they or would they not do it? And then the opportunity means, did they have the time to kidnap him? When did they have the chance to kidnap him? That's what we're thinking about, okay? So we are going to try this together, okay? We're going to try it together. So let's start with Mr. Paskey. So remember how he was looking so nervous? So it helps to think about the motives of a suspect. So let me find where we see Mr. Paskey being pretty. Okay, let's look here. Can you guys see this photo? Just look while I talk, okay? Maybe Mr. Paskey, can you guys see it?
Wait, can you share your screen so I can see it better?
Yes, let me share. Let's see. Well, here. What about this? You should be able to see that, okay? All right, can you still see it? All right, maybe Mr. Paskey might want to keep the famous author to himself. That doesn't seem likely though, so let's keep thinking. I'm really having a hard time thinking what Mr. Paskey's motive might be, why he might want to keep Wallace Wallace. So maybe he's not really the suspect or the culprit, the person who did it after all. But we also need to think about not only why he might do it, but did he have an opportunity to do it? So Mr. Paskey couldn't have kidnapped Wallace Wallace during the book signing, right? Because people would have seen him missing. Perhaps, though, he had the chance to commit the crime before the book signing. But I'm not sure. Again, I don't know why he'd want to kidnap him. So this is making me think that perhaps Mr. Paskey isn't the culprit after all, that he is nervous for some other reason. But we just don't know yet, right? We have to read more. So did you guys notice that before I can figure out the mystery, before I can predict who did the crime, I have to think backwards? All right, what did this character do? How is he acting? Collect my thoughts about each suspect, and then specifically about his motives. And then I have to think forward, okay? So this is what you guys should be doing while you're reading your book, right? While you're reading your book. So let's go ahead. I have a little presentation again, kind of we've been working on. Go ahead. We're going to look at my screen. Can you guys see this? Give me a thumbs up if you could see my screen. Can you guys see my screen? Give me a thumbs up. Perfect. Okay. So here's what we're doing now. Here, do you guys see this orange one? Here's our new thing today. Prediction, drawing out a suspect, so who we think did the crime, their motives, which is why they want to do something, and their opportunities. Did she or he have the chance to do it? So let's look at these little bubbles. You see them, the little clouds. It says, where was the character when? So where was Mr. Paskey? Well, he's been in his bookstore, right? So when would he even have time to kidnap Wallace Wallace? Why did he do that? Well, we don't really think he did it because we can't really come up with a good reason why he'd want to kidnap. So this is kind of what we said. Mr. P is one of my suspects, our suspects, because I think because he's acting so nervous, and suspects are often nervous when they're afraid of getting caught. But then we kind of talked about, well, he doesn't really have any motives. So it is okay to think someone's a suspect, and then maybe when you read further, you're like, oh, I completely changed my mind. This guy didn't do it at all. That's okay to do. It's actually good to do because now you're eliminating people of who we think did it. So that's what we're focusing on today, our suspects. When you go and read and watch the video for writing today, I will talk about Maureen as a suspect. I will talk about Maureen as a suspect, okay? So make sure later today you go and work on your writing because you're going to need to do that, okay? So let's look at our to-do list for reading.